By December of 1776, the American Revolution was not just struggling, it was dying. The Continental Army had been routed from New York, chased across New Jersey, and reduced to a freezing, starving shadow of its former self. Desertions were epidemic. Enlistments were expiring on January 1st. Thomas Paine, writing by the light of a campfire, captured the moment perfectly. These are the times that try men's souls. No one felt that more deeply than General George Washington. Washington's army had shrunk from nearly 20,000 men to fewer than 2,400 who were even remotely fit for battle. Soldiers wrapped their bleeding feet in rags. Some had no shoes at all, leaving trails of blood in the snow. Morale had collapsed so completely that continental currency was nearly worthless, and ordinary Americans were beginning to wonder if independence was nothing more than a dream. On the other side of the Delaware River, the Hessian garrison at Trenton, New Jersey sat warm and well supplied. These were professional German soldiers, hired by the British Crown, hardened, disciplined, and contemptuous of the ragged continental forces they had chased across the state. Their commander, Colonel Johann Röhl, had even received a written warning that an American attack might be coming. He tucked the note into his pocket without reading it and went back to his card game. Washington understood something that his enemies did not. Inaction was the same as defeat. If he did not strike, and strike hard, before the new year, his army would simply dissolve. Men would go home. The revolution would quietly expire, not on a battlefield, but in a cold, muddy camp on the Pennsylvania side of the Delaware. So Washington made a decision that stunned even his own officers. On the night of December 25th, 1776, in the middle of a brutal nor'easter, he would cross the Delaware River with 2,400 men, 9 miles of horses, and 18 pieces of artillery, and attack Trenton at dawn. The plan was breathtaking in its audacity and terrifying in its risk. The river was choked with massive chunks of drifting ice. The temperature hovered around zero. The wind was howling. Rain, sleet, and snow came in sideways. Henry Knox, Washington's artillery commander, described it as a perfect hurricane. 2 supporting columns of troops, tasked with crossing at different points along the river, were turned back entirely by the conditions. Washington pressed on. The crossing began around 11 o'clock at night. Durham boats, flat-bottomed cargo vessels normally used to haul iron ore, were poled and rowed through the churning black water by a regiment of experienced Massachusetts fishermen and sailors under Colonel John Glover. Blocks of ice scraped and crashed against the hulls. Horses screamed. Men gripped the sides and prayed. Washington stood in the bow of one of the boats, a massive figure in a dark cloak, watching the far shore in silence. It took until 3 in the morning to get everyone across. They were already 2 hours behind schedule. The plan had called for a pre-dawn arrival, but the storm had shredded the timeline. Washington's officers urged him to turn back. The element of surprise, they argued, was gone. The men were soaked and exhausted. Artillery pieces had been dragged across ice in the pitch dark. Everything that could go wrong had gone wrong. Washington refused to retreat. He gave an order that has echoed through history ever since: victory or death. The column marched 9 miles through the screaming storm, men falling out of line only to be pulled back to their feet by officers and fellow soldiers. Frostbite was already setting in. Some men loaded their muskets with wet powder and prayed the flints would spark. When they reached the outskirts of Trenton just before 8 in the morning, the Hessian sentries had their heads bowed against the storm. The attack came from 2 directions simultaneously. Henry Knox's artillery was positioned at the top of King and Queen Streets, the main roads running through Trenton, and opened fire with devastating effect. The Hessians scrambled from their barracks, confused and disoriented, attempting to form battle lines in the chaos of the storm. Colonel Röhl, finally roused from sleep, rode out into the streets to rally his men and was struck by musket fire. He was carried back inside, mortally wounded. the unread warning letter still in his coat pocket. The battle lasted barely 45 minutes. Nearly 1,000 Hessian soldiers were captured. Supplies, artillery, and ammunition fell into American hands. American casualties were remarkably light. No men were killed in combat, though 2 soldiers froze to death on the march. Washington had achieved a complete tactical surprise against a professional European force, in conditions that no military textbook would have ever recommended for an assault. The effect on American morale was electric. News of the victory spread like wildfire through the colonies. Men who had been ready to go home re-enlisted. Recruiting offices saw new volunteers. Congress, which had fled Philadelphia in panic just weeks before, took heart. The British and Hessian command began to reassess what kind of enemy they were actually fighting. Washington crossed back over the Delaware with his prisoners and his captured guns, and within days he struck again at Princeton, compounding the shock and forcing the British to pull back across New Jersey. The campaign that began on that frozen Christmas night had fundamentally changed the shape of the war. Historians have called the Battle of Trenton one of the most consequential military actions in American history. Not because of its scale, it was a skirmish by the standards of European warfare, but because of its timing. At the exact moment when the revolution was about to die of despair, George Washington did the one thing no one expected him to do. He crossed the river. He bet everything on one freezing night, and he won. Follow Empire Echoes for more incredible history stories. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button and follow Empire Echoes for more incredible stories from history that shaped our world. New videos every week. Don't miss out.